So when I had first purchased Portrait of a Lady in 2013, I remember coming home from the mall and getting out of the shower, picking my clothes up off the floor, throw them in the wash. But I went to go smell my shirt first and thinking, wow, this is one of the best things I've ever smelled in my life. Not best perfumes, best things ever. It was that good. And since then, I haven't really, I've kind of reached for it once or twice a year. It is kind of a bold and special occasion perfume for me, which I thought. So I didn't really get to spend a whole lot of time with it. As an enthusiast, we're always chasing the next best thing, testing, sampling, whatever. But late last year, I had a chance to pick up a 100 ml bottle. So this is a currant formula from a dude in the parking lot for 70% off retail. And I thought, okay, sure, why not? It looks original. It looks real. Like, why wouldn't I? And when I brought it home, I was like, this is a little bit different than I remember. It's not as rosy. It's more fruity, more berry, more woody, less spicy. I'm not sure what to think. But since October, you can see it's easily my most worn perfume. And I put a huge dent into that sucker. And the perfume has really, really changed since the first time I've smelled it. And I'm not huge on reformulations, but I keep hearing how Portrait of a Lady has been butchered, it's changed, it's a shell of its former self. All that mumbo jumbo drives me nuts without any proof. But the only really difference I see on, the old bottle and the new bottle is the volume of alcohol in the back. I think it's alcohol they're talking about. This one states 83% and this one 80%. So as far as I'm concerned now, they smell identical, and I have no proof. I have no reason to think it's changed much at all. I don't really know, but that's the only difference that I can physically see or of any change is that percentage, which I'm assuming is alcohol. But this, to me, the rose has really bloomed, and almost like a fine wine, it needs air to breathe. It needs air to bring out the aromas, the flavors. And I think that's kind of what happened here is I've put a little bit of air in this bottle, and I keep hearing about oxidization or maceration. Again, I have no idea what all that stuff means, but putting a little bit of air in here has changed the perfume a lot. And I think before somebody would go out and scream, reformulation, it's not the same, batch code, blah, blah, blah. Give your perfume a little bit of time, get to know it, spend several wearings before you come to a conclusion. But this, to me, again, is one of the greatest things I've ever smelled in my life. And I love Rose Patch, and this is definitely at the top of my lover list. Let's put a little bit in the air just to remind me. I like to do this. So this is Rose, this is Patchouli. Oh, this is spices galore. I get clove right off the top. There's cinnamon in here. I get something a little bit fresh green. I get a little bit green spice that reminds me of cilantro. I don't know why. I love cooking with cilantro, and I pick up just like a little touch of greenness. But this is all rose from top to bottom. Wow, it's just so good. Incense, I pick up a lot of incense now. But it's mainly rose and patchouli. There's rose essence, rose absolute listed, probably a Turkish rose in here as well. So the rose, to me, it's not a wet, dewy kind of rose like you'd find in Un Rose. It's not a springtime rose. It's not a makeup accord rose like Lipstick Rose. It's a very dark, crimson red, warm rose. Almost something, it's a warm rose sitting out on a cold medieval city night, maybe Istanbul. out in Turkey. That's kind of what it reminds me of, you know, probably growing out of the cobblestone or a rock rose. But it's got a lot of support from patchouli. Patchouli to me is very earthy. It's not as scratchy as I kind of like. I really like those textured patchoulis. This one's very smooth to me. Sometimes, you know, it kind of disappears and comes back, and I'll catch it in the air off my own silage. But patchouli's got a little bit of brown colors. It's a little bit round. The rose in here is really sharp, so I find it, if this was Frederic Malle painting a rose, it would be really sharp lines, nothing round, nothing really blended, just really sharp and scratchy. But the patchouli in here is really rounded and earthy, and I pick up almost like a soil texture to this, a little bit of powderiness. If that makes sense. But you can see here, here's the, I think I've showed this on my channel before. I can't remember. Here's the SYNESTHESIA bottle for Portrait of a Lady. And you can see he's got, obviously, red for the rose and brown for the patchouli. And I agree with the colors that he sees. When I wear perfume, I see a lot of colors, and I see textures and sometimes shapes in the effect of strokes. Like if I were painting a picture of this in my head, what kind of paintbrush strokes would this be? I would have made this red here a little bit more sharp and jagged, representing the rose, but I think the patchouli is right on. Kind of a roundy, soft patchouli. I would add a little bit something for spice because there's a whole lot of spice in here. The clove, you know, clove's often considered like a masculine note. I don't find it overbearing in this perfume. I think it's a little bit more softer, which makes it easier for a woman to pull off. But again, I hear guys saying this is an old granny perfume, this is woman, this is too girly, this is not for a man to wear. I kind of disagree. I think this is, I think anybody can really wear this, but if I had to decide a gender, if it sways traditionally one way or another, I think it's more masculine, to be honest. Rose patch can be a really tough thing to pull off, and then when you add all the spices that Portrait of a Lady has in here, which is quite spicy, which I really like, and it's got kind of that Middle Eastern flair to it. It's definitely not soft. I'd say it definitely leans more to the, I don't know which way would be masculine, but it leans more masculine than it would feminine. Yeah, just a really spicy, warm, sweet. Oh yeah, there's also like a fruity berryness, and there's, which adds a lot of sweetness to this. There's a kind of a tart, almost sour currant, a black currant note. So there's quite a bit of fruits in here, which to me adds a whole lot of mossiness to this perfume. I know Frederic Malle's got it listed as a oriental, and I do pick up, you know, just the slightest hint of vanillas in the base. It doesn't go a whole lot powdery on me, and I don't get a whole lot of ambers from this, and you know, benzoin's listed. I don't really see that benzoin, even though I can get some incense, but to me this is way more chypre, a rose patchouli chypre, than it is a rose patchouli oriental. I just, when I wear this, oriental never ever comes to mind. It's always chypre, even though there's no oak moss. I think they've kind of, well, it seems to me they've constructed this mossiness using this sour currant and patchouli, almost the same way Thierry Wasser, when he reformulated Derby, they had to restrict oak moss, and he kind of replaced that oak moss using a lemon and carnation note. So, you know, there's certain things you can do, but to replace oak moss. But I definitely find this way more mossy, which I like. I like this a lot. So I find this way more mossy than I do powdery, golden ambery, oriental. It's more along the lines of, let's say, Rose Barbar from Guerlain, which is a rose patchouli chypre, and from Healy Hippie Rose, it's very similar to the effect of those two, opposed to, let's say, I don't know, is Nahima considered an oriental? I think it is. A lot of vanilla in there, so that might be an oriental, but it's all rose from top to bottom, rose, 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 rose. And it's so weird that, when I first got it, it was way more berry and fruit and sweet than it was rose. But I'm thrilled that, the perfume has changed and the bottle's really opened up. And that's what I'm getting. But I think Malle's really on top of his rose and his patchouli game like nobody else, really. He's got lipstick rose, which is kind of, the handbag, woman's cosmetic rose thing going on. A little bit of powderiness. He's got Un Rose, which is more a photorealistic rose, single rose, green stem, leaves, soil, dirt. I don't really get the green leaves in the stem in here. This is all the heart. This is rose petals and the heart, the head of the rose, with spices and incense kind of coming out of that rose head. But then you got the desert gems, which is a combination of both rose and patchouli, and all of them, starting from Promise to the Moon, Dawn, the Night. So Malle's really killing rose. He's really killing patchouli. Patchouli with Monsieur. He's kind of taken Monsieur and made that all about patchouli. And then the desert gems. So just absolutely killing. He's loving his rose's traditional note, which does kind of represent new beginnings. So a lot of people mistake rose to represent love, or that kind of thing. They give their lovers roses, but I think if you look it up, rose represents new beginnings. Anyway, there you have it. That's my review of Portrait of a Lady. Let me know what you think of Portrait of a Lady. I've also got the oil, Portrait of a Lady oil, which I love. It's really, really, really good. And it's almost, I've got the body butter too. And it just, takes the Portrait of a Lady game to a whole other level. I love this for my face in the mornings before I go to work. I'll just dab on a couple of drops and put around my eyes and chin and neck. Hopefully it'll keep me looking young and youthful and that kind of thing. The body butter I'm not as crazy about as I love the oil, but the body butter is still good. They just add this little bit of extra pop to the fragrance. Wow, it's just like the spiciness and the richness really come out in this. Even the incense, like everything is just kind of magnified 10 times, like tenfold. Unreal. Unreal. Rose patchouli. I think it's literally one of the best in the game as far as all the things that I've tried and come across. But Portrait of a Lady. Let me know what you think of Portrait of a Lady, and look forward to reading your comments, and I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye for now.